Revenge films.
Back when I was still single, one of my colleagues, Jane, asked me to babysit her kids one day. She had to go to a parent-teacher conference for her older daughter, and she needed someone to watch her younger one. She said it would be 2 hours at most. This wasn't my first time, so I didn't really mind. Around 3 p.m., Jane headed over to school. We ate some snacks and hung out. Then, someone rang the doorbell. "Who is it?" I asked. "I got a package for you," said the lady. She was probably around Jane's age. I assumed it was a neighbor who was holding onto a package for Jane. But as soon as I unlocked the door, she shoved open the door. She just stood there and glared at me. I had no idea what was going on. Then she grabbed my hair and pulled me down to the ground. I was in a lot of pain. I had no idea what just happened, but I tried my best to fight back. Is she robbing me? I was panicking. Then I realized something. There's a little kid in the next room. I can't let her in. I have to take care of her myself. I pushed her outside, and with the door to my back, I did everything I could to keep her out. The woman kept saying, "Where's my money? Pay me back!" She was flipping out. One of the neighbors saw us and came to help, but she kept coming at me. Finally, someone called the cops. All the neighbors rushed over to help me. Then... "Wait, you're not Jane? Who are you?" "I'm her babysitter. She's at the parent and teacher conference right now," I replied. But the woman who attacked me said, "Liar! Her name is Jill. She's a con artist." She started getting out of control again, and the police finally stepped in. Backup arrived shortly, and the lady who attacked me, Karen, started screaming again. "She stole from me. Her name is Jill. She's lying to you all." Everyone seemed really confused. I mean, everyone knew that I wasn't Jane, and nobody knew who Jill was either. The police took her away. They told me to go to the hospital and come down to the station afterwards to answer some questions. But I had to look after my colleague's daughter, so the neighbors offered to help. "No worries, I'll look after her," she said. I thanked her and headed to the hospital. Jane wasn't home yet, so I sent her a text explaining the situation. I thought it was just a scratch, but turns out one of my eardrums were damaged. After seeing a doctor, I headed over to the police station. An officer came out to the lobby and said,
"She says you stole money from her or something? Know anything about that?"
I told him that I was babysitting for Jane and that I've never seen Karen before in my life, and I didn't know who Jill was either. The officer looked confused. But so was I. I had no idea what was going on. I've never seen her in my life. Why did she think that I scammed her? How did she recognize me? I was just babysitting for a friend. This is something out of the movies or something, I thought to myself. According to Karen, she got lured into a pyramid scheme and she wanted her money back. She said that I was the mastermind of it all and that I was lying to the police. She ended up getting detained because she was out of control. I told them that I had no idea about anything she was saying. Finally, at around 10 p.m., they let me go. Back at Jane's house, she was furious. "That lady is crazy. I hope they throw her in prison." She tried to comfort me. "There are some dangerous people out there. I'm just glad your daughter didn't get hurt," I said. Afterwards, I went home and went to sleep. But the thing is, this was far from over. The next day, I found out the shocking truth. Jane's husband came over to my house. At first, I thought he came over to apologize for what happened yesterday. But as soon as I opened the door, he got on his knees and apologized.
"My wife was behind all of this! That lady attacked you thinking you were! I'm so sorry for all of this!"
He said. He just kept apologizing to me over and over again. I had no idea what was going on. I invited him in and asked him to explain things to me. Turns out that Jane really was involved in some shady pyramid scheme. She never said anything about that. I got attacked because of her. My eardrums are damaged because of her. I couldn't keep up. I was so confused and shocked. He just kept apologizing to me, but he didn't know about any of this either. He rushed over as soon as he found out. So it turns out that Jane was involved in some shady pyramid scheme and Karen was one of her victims. This was all done online and she called herself Jill. And get this, she used my photo on her profile. No wonder that woman thought I was Jill. "You're Jill. I know you are." That's why she was saying that. It all makes sense now. Apparently things were going well for the first few months, but things went south pretty quickly. Karen kept on paying her more money, but it was too late when she noticed that she was being scammed. She tried contacting Jane for about a year, asking her to pay her back, but Jane just ignored her. Finally, Karen snapped. I guess I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Just my luck, right? I mean, she was using my picture on her profile. It's unbelievable. I was speechless. And when she came home, she must have realized what really happened, but she didn't tell me anything, let alone apologize. How can you do that to someone you know? Well, I guess that's why she was successful with her pyramid scheme. Anyways, after the incident, my husband and I decided to move away. Things just got kind of awkward. We decided to move out of the state and went to live near my parents. When Jane's husband found out about this, he came over again and apologized again to both of us. He even paid us $20,000 for damages. At least he was a decent human being. Anyways, I still can't believe what happened. But I've been thinking about moving out for a while now, so I guess things kind of worked out. Maybe not. Oh, and Jane got thrown into prison. Turns out she had a record too. She got arrested for theft a few years ago. Not sure if her husband knew about that, but they ended up getting a divorce. Needless to say, her husband took her kids. Good riddance. But it's still hard to believe that she was able to run a pyramid scheme and play the good mom for years. I guess you just never know. I hope I never see Jane again. I wish they never let her out of prison.
I live with my husband, Jason, but his mother, Karen, is so insistent on living with us. We always argue in circles, and it wasn't as easy as she tried to make it sound. Until one day, Jason and I were called over to his parents' house. The moment we arrived, sit right there. Karen was already prepared to scold us. "You guys better give me an answer today!" What the hell is she talking about? Every time you text message me, call me, or show up at our house, I've told you straight up that we can't do it. I didn't understand how the whole thing was still even in question. As usual, she started off about what it meant to be a good wife and get married and so on. Tell me exactly why you guys don't want to live with us. So I told her. First, why don't you tell me why you hate me so much, Karen? What? I've never hated you, Christina. But you always nag at me. You tell me how I'm doing the laundry wrong, cooking wrong, and how my attitude is bad. It sure seems like you have a problem with every single thing I do. It was your neighbors who mentioned the laundry. Even your attitude, I hear about it from people around you. It's not my opinion. Alright then, I'll tell my neighbors to stop peeking into how I do laundry then. That's pretty creepy. You see? That's how you cause friction with your neighbors. That's why they have all these problems with your attitude. I think the people who are peeking into people's houses are the ones looking for friction. They all say how you are so disrespectful for rejecting me, and how you're always so disrespectful to the elderly. They all feel so bad for me. Who is everyone? You mean Mrs. Turner? Mrs. O'Donnell? What about Mrs. Fisher? Mrs. Peterson and Mrs. Williams all live separately from their children too, don't they? None of them do. And besides, if I'm such a nuisance, why would they all want to live near me? They can all do their own thing. I'm talking about us, okay? Stop acting like a child. Besides, why are they all your friends all of a sudden? You always try to tell me all the terrible things that they do. Ugh, you're such a brat. You need to learn how to speak to me. It's so annoying. So, I am annoying? No, the neighbors always say that you have a bad mouth, so it's embarrassing. Karen kept ranting for a while. She went on and finally calmed down a bit after she let it all out. Well, what about you then? This is a good time to share our feelings, right? Your turn. Sweet. I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years. Okay, if you say so. First of all, you think you're allowed to do anything to me, don't you, Karen? Huh? What are you talking about? Well, why else would you sneak into my backyard and steal the flowers that I take care of? What's wrong with a couple of flowers? And you always ask for things. Accessories, my humidifier, cosmetics? You should be buying those things yourself. Oh, and by the way, why don't you give me back the things that you took from the house without my permission? Also, you're always so nosy. It's wrong to go into other people's houses and open up drawers without permission, don't you think? You need to get it into your head that we live separately for a reason. Jason's father was staring at his wife in disbelief. Also, I hate how you always try to say how hard Jason works and say that I'm lazy. You scold me about how Jason is working his ass off while all you do is nap on the sofa. No, I don't. I never take a nap. And after I've told you so many times that I don't want to live with you, you try to tell us that it's the eldest son's responsibility to take care of his parents, right? Yeah, well, it's true. Jason is our eldest son. What's wrong with that? You're a hypocrite. Your husband is the eldest son in his family too, but you turned down your own mother-in-law, didn't you? You little brat! How dare you speak to your parents like that? And whenever there's something you want to say, or you're mad about, or when you want to insult me, you always try to make it sound like everyone else is saying those things. I hate that about you. If you have something to say, you might as well just say it in your own words. But the way you do it is so sneaky and annoying. I can't deal with all that. I let it all out. No one in that room expected me to come into this conversation so prepared and well-rehearsed. After being so straightforward about it, all they could do was sit there in silence. Karen was just awestruck.
Hey, take it easy now.
Jason tried to calm me, but… Well, you never did anything for me either, Jason. How many times did I have to talk to you about your mother? Did you ever just say a word to her? No. All you did is nod your head and say, next time, and always avoid confrontation.
Well…
So, who's gonna stand up for me if I don't stand up for myself? This is your mother, Jason. If my parents treated you like that, I'd never forgive them. I'd fight to the death for you, but you never stood up for me. Am I that insignificant to you? My words or my energy must have hit him pretty hard. Jason just kind of shrank down.
Sorry.
That's all he could squeeze out. Karen was red and shaking with anger as her eyes watered up. It was getting pretty awkward there. Well, you get my point. I'm not living with you. I'd rather get divorced than live with you. I'll leave it at that. I got up and left. After getting home, I loosened up and everything kind of exploded, and unknown tears just overflowed from my eyes. I'm glad I didn't explode at Jason's parents' house. I felt much better after getting everything off my chest, but at the same time, I was feeling awkward about my future encounters with my mother-in-law. Jason came home shortly after.
I didn't know how fed up you were. I'm sorry.
I mentioned my own parents, but my mother loved Jason and took great care of him. Even when we would argue, my mother would often be on Jason's side. It had never heard her talk badly about Jason, which added to my frustration. I told Jason about it, and he sympathized and told me that he regretted how poorly he dealt with the situation. He finally understood how unfairly I was being treated this whole time.
I'm really sorry. You can count on me to deal with my mother from now on. And we don't have to ever see my parents again if you don't want. And of course, they won't be living with us. You can be sure about that.
After finally seeing Jason understood along with the relief of being free from Karen for good, I cried again. Jason explained to me that he knew that Karen was bugging me about letting her move in with us. But he never thought that I was actually against it. I didn't tell Jason this, but I think I know Karen's true motives. Firstly, Karen had been complaining about her back recently, so I think she wants someone to do housework for her. The reason why she was annoying me about how I do laundry was probably because she wanted me to wash her clothes her way. Another reason was financial. I think this is the main reason. I work from home and make a stable income. You guys don't even have children. Stop sitting on your ass at home and go out and work. When Karen mentioned that before, I explained to her what I did and even showed her my bank statements as proof. Even if I did have a child, I could still work from home, so it wouldn't affect my income that much. Jason made a fair amount of money as well, so Karen knows that we're well off on money. She mentioned in the past, if you guys have extra money, normally you'd offer to help your in-laws. But she was always so mean to me and never did anything to deserve it. So I made up excuses to refuse to help her out financially. But it was around then that Karen started to insist that she wanted to live with us. I'm sure all she wanted was a servant to do her chores and have a good excuse to ask us for some allowance. It would have been a good deal for her. But after that incident, all talks about living together completely ended. Karen was scolded by her husband as well. She was told that everyone in the same position wouldn't want to live with her. On top of that, Jason yelled at her for me too, and Karen stopped bugging me completely. I had a lot built up until that day and had played that situation in my mind many times, but I'm glad that everything turned out as I planned.
A woman who moved out of my neighborhood recently stole from me. Things unraveled from a phone call that I received. It was my Uncle Ben, who had worked at an insurance company. This is the gist of what he told me.
A woman here is saying that she plans to switch insurance companies and wants a full payment of all your family's investments thus far.
Our entire family was insured by this company because our relatives ran the company. But a woman who claimed to be a representative was there to cancel our family's insurance. We didn't have any plans to do such a thing and never signed over legal rights to a representative. It must be some sort of mistake.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Let me double check for you.
That was all for that day, but I received a phone call from the police that evening.
A woman who claims to be a relative is here with a copy of your insurance policy and other paperwork. But does this ring any bells?
They also told me that they got a call from the insurance company. That person who claimed to be a representative kept switching her story, and in the end started saying that she was my relative.
When you say relative, what is your exact relationship with Jenna?
I am the daughter of one of Jenna's father's siblings. Uncle Ben was suspicious of this answer and immediately called the police. My father only had one other brother who was Uncle Ben, so he immediately knew she was lying. Uncle Ben notified the police and continued to pretend to ask for more information as he waited for the police to arrive. After hearing that, I got concerned and went to check the safe where I kept important paperwork and valuables, but the key wasn't where it was supposed to be. I was in a panic as I got the spare key from my husband's room and opened it up. When I opened it, a bunch of stuff that was supposed to be there was gone. I looked further and found the envelope where I kept my insurance policy papers, and the paperwork was empty along with the other related paperwork. Not only that, but other valuables, also including my engagement ring and other important things, were missing. I was panicking over the phone and the officer calmed me down.
Calm down, miss. Try not to touch anything. We'll be there soon.
Yeah, but... oh no, it's all missing! What? Why? I was completely panicking.
All right, I understand, miss. Calm down. Take some deep breaths, okay? There you go.
I finally got a hold of myself and waited there for my husband and police to arrive. After a while, they arrived and started taking prints and pictures of the safe. They proceeded to ask me questions about the contents of the safe and so on. While I was answering their questions, I found out who the woman was. When I heard the name, it shocked me. It was Karen, a woman who'd recently moved out of my neighborhood. Karen had moved out with her family a few days ago, and I heard rumors that she had a habit of stealing things and had been caught stealing valuable items from one of the neighbors, and was pretty much kicked out of the neighborhood. I remembered the rumors when I heard her name. I'd never been very friendly with Karen, and although I knew that she was in a neighborhood, she didn't live very close. And I would see her in neighborhood meetings once in a while, so greeting her when I saw her was pretty much the extent of our relationship. She'd only been in my house a few times, and when she came over the other day to tell me that she was moving away, it was just a quick greeting. So I was shocked to hear that it was her. I found out later that Karen had snuck into my house a week ago and had opened my safe and stolen everything in there. That was scary to hear because I hadn't seen her or let her into my house over the past week. I explained that to the police.
She must have broken in while you were gone.
It seems like she had checked where I had kept the valuables and where I hid the key in advance, and her prints were found in various spots around the house, which showed that she had been in my house multiple times while I was out. Her prints were not only found in the rooms, but also in our closets. It seemed like she searched every corner of the house for things to steal. After opening my vault, she stole the contents and used my bank card and information to try and withdraw my money. But when she went to the banks, they asked for identification, which thankfully she didn't have. She told them that she forgot her ID and left, so the withdrawal ended up failing. She took my ring and other valuables and sold them off to a pawn shop for cash, but it wasn't enough. So she thought that she could cancel my insurance to withdraw my insurance premium funds that I had reserved. So she went directly to the company of the written address to cancel my insurance, which was where she ran into Uncle Ben. But it was an unusual contract to try and cancel, especially through a representative, and that was why my uncle decided to double check with me. When Uncle Ben was pressing her for answers, she had lied to his face, saying that she was my cousin, and that's why he decided to report it to the police. The police arrested her for multiple crimes, including theft, forgery, and property damage. When she was brought in for questioning, she still had no clue that the man she was speaking to at the insurance company was my uncle, and continued to claim she was my relative. She kept repeating how she was my relative and how she was my cousin, and the police got fed up with her insistent lie.
That's not possible. That man you spoke with at the insurance company today is Jenna's father's only brother.
After hearing that, Karen went pale and admitted to everything. Karen's husband and parents arrived quickly after that to my house to make excuses. She says she didn't mean to steal anything. She just needed to borrow some money because the moving expenses ended up costing too much, and she was planning on paying you back.
We'll compensate you for everything. So can you retract your police statement, please?
What she did was criminal. This is what the judicial system is for. Of course you'll pay me back for the damages, because the law requires you to do so. But I will not pretend like none of this ever happened. I refused to comply and proceeded to sue her for damages. I had them buy back what was sold off and had them pay me extra for what couldn't be bought back. My uncle introduced me to a good lawyer who took care of things smoothly for me. But by then, we started finding out that Karen had been stealing from other houses as well. It was estimated that she had stolen tens of thousands of dollars worth of goods, and including all the legal fees, she probably ended up owing over $100,000. Karen's husband couldn't handle those damages and had her sign the divorce papers and fled on her. And her parents ended up having to pay for most of the costs, so they went deep into debt after borrowing money from various places to pay everyone back. Her husband took custody of their daughter, who was still in preschool. I heard that during her interrogation, Karen had said something like, "Oh, I was so close!" I wonder what she was so close to achieving, but she probably meant that she was so close from getting away from everything because she was almost out of the neighborhood for good. Hasn't she heard not to cast dirt into the well that gives you water? Well, I just hope that I never get caught up in anything like that again. For summer break, my husband, his brother, and his wife and I went to visit my in-laws. The plan was to have lunch there and drinks at night. After that, we were going to drive home, which was about an hour away. And my brother-in-law and his wife were going to spend the night at my in-laws' place and fly home in the morning. I didn't see my in-laws too often, but we had a decent relationship. My mother-in-law, Grace, was a nice lady, and I always looked forward to visiting them. At the family gathering, my brother-in-law Joey started making some ridiculous claims, though. We didn't have some ingredients for lunch that day, so Grace gave me some money to go shopping. I got back home and left my wallet on the dining table for about 30 minutes. Once lunch was ready, we all started eating when Joey pointed at his wife Charlotte all of a sudden.
This one overspends. Can you all help me teach her how to spend properly?
We were all caught off guard, and I thought that maybe Charlotte had bought some expensive handbag or something without permission. But according to Joey,
She spends like $300 on food every month. Our cost of living each month is like $1,000.
Joey was a pretty big guy. Whenever we gathered like this, it was obvious that he was the biggest eater. He would always get seconds and get hungry before meals and snack on food early. And even when we were done eating, he would rummage around the kitchen for more food. $300 a month sounds normal, though. When Grace pointed that out, Joey pulled out a receipt.
Don't defend her. This is proof. See? It only costs $14.
Joey pulled out the receipt from when I went shopping earlier and showed us all. It was the receipt that was in my wallet. Wait, Joey, did you go into my wallet and pull out that receipt? My husband Andrew caught on to what was going on as well.
What the hell are you doing?
Joey just smirked and waved his hands at us like there was nothing to worry about.
Anyways, explain to me this $14.
He shoved the receipt in Charlotte's face. We were all confused. That was just the receipt for the missing ingredients after all, and there were no hints about how to cut back on monthly food costs. He was just making a fool of himself, and we all stared at Joey like he was out of his mind. I mean, you guys even have a child. $300 isn't that much. I spend about that much between just your father and me.
You're just defending her because she's a girl. Obviously, she's overspending.
Joey wouldn't sway, so Grace pulled out a list of expenses that she keeps to show him, but Joey only pointed out single payments.
See here? You only spent $20 that day.
Yeah, do that 15 times in 1 month, and that's $300, right? Joey didn't seem convinced. I was shocked that Joey couldn't do simple elementary level math, and it was creepy how he was smirking the entire time. Joey was so confident that he was right, and he acted like a detective pointing out the killer of a crime scene. He would look at Charlotte now and then and say,
Huh? Huh?
but I had no idea what he meant by that. When Andrew showed his stupid brother on a calculator, Joey seemed convinced for a second, but after that, we were just arguing in circles. He never ended up apologizing for going through my wallet, and the whole atmosphere became awkward, so we decided to call off the drinks that night, and my father-in-law took Joey out for drinks together instead. According to Charlotte, Joey didn't used to be like that, but he changed after he switched jobs. Do you want to spend the night with us? I offered Charlotte to stay with us, but she said no, so we went home that day. I talked to Andrew on our ride home. I feel bad for Charlotte. Joey's so stupid. Those words came out unintentionally. I caught myself and decided to keep my mouth shut. He may be stupid, but he was Andrew's brother after all. I was feeling awkward, but Andrew sighed deeply in the driver's seat.
He didn't used to be like that, though. I wonder what has gotten into him. I feel bad for Charlotte, too.
A few days later, Joey suddenly quit his job.
Charlotte just leeches off of me! I don't want to work just to pay for her.
Joey ran back to his parents' house alone, and we received a call from Grace. His father yelled at him, but
I didn't want to just give her money, so I quit.
that's all he said, and he started living unemployed at my in-laws' house. Grace called Charlotte to apologize, but Joey didn't seem to want to go home and claimed that he was going to live there from now on. Charlotte still had a job, so she stayed there. And so Charlotte and Joey started living away from each other. Grace felt bad for Charlotte and was furious with how stupid Joey was being. I'll give you $300, so you try to manage food within that budget. So she handed Joey $300 and put him in charge of purchasing and making food for his parents and himself. I've never even heard of or seen Joey cook, by the way. He would use Charlotte like a slave and never even got up to get a glass of water. Joey argued that he couldn't cook, so Grace agreed to do the cooking and put Joey in charge of buying the food. Joey seemed confident. He wasn't worried about it at all.
No problem. This'll be easy.
He requested dishes just like he normally requested Charlotte to Grace.
Tonight, I want fried chicken with mashed potatoes and coleslaw. Make me some spaghetti with meatballs and chicken noodle soup.
He would just request dishes and eat all he wanted. Like I mentioned earlier, he's a big eater and would buy a lot of meat and vegetables. It wasn't like he even kept track of everything either. He would just go shopping and hand the receipts over to his mother. But 2 weeks in, he was already down to $50. And
I don't have enough money. Give me more.
hey, you were the one that said that $300 was going to be easy, right? I'm not giving you another dime.
Huh? What the hell? How the hell am I supposed to eat?
Listen to yourself, you idiot. After everything you said to Charlotte, look at you. Don't you see how much effort it was for Charlotte to keep your food expenses down to $300 when you eat so much? No matter how many times he checked, there was only $50 left for the rest of the month. He realized his stupidity and gradually returned to his normal self. He called Charlotte up to apologize, but Charlotte hadn't forgiven him, and they were still living apart. Joey was depressed.
Why were you acting all crazy, man?
Apparently, the company that Joey was working for at the time was weird. It was kind of a cult, where they taught that work was top priority, and that people should work for meaning, not money. Joey gradually started thinking,
I can't believe Charlotte overspends this money that I make doing this wonderful job.
once he started thinking like that, everything that Charlotte did started bothering him. But I could understand how Charlotte couldn't just forgive him for being brainwashed. I was curious why Charlotte was being so careful about spending money when she had a job too. But I heard from Grace that it was Charlotte's dream to buy a house, so she was saving up for that. She saw how we had built our own house and wanted one for her family as well. So she was cutting back no matter how much they made, but all of this happened. I could see why she would be upset. Joey never knew about Charlotte's dream to buy a house, and after hearing about that, he was even more depressed. Currently, he found himself a job near his parents' home, where he works and is saving money in the hopes that Charlotte will forgive him one day. The other day, I visited my in-laws with Andrew.
I'm so sorry for how I acted and what I said the other day.
Joey apologized for everything, including how he opened my wallet. I was glad to see that he seemed to be returning to his normal self. I don't know how long it will take, but thankfully, Charlotte hasn't filed for divorce. And after hearing about everything that happened, the ball is in Joey's court, I think. I enjoy Charlotte and my in-laws' company, so I hope that one day we'll all be able to gather together.
My parents didn't really do anything for me when I was a kid. I still remember playing in the park by myself at age 3. In elementary school, I made a few friends, but kids started picking on me. I didn't know why at the time, but looking back, I guess I was a pretty weird kid. My parents never hit me, but they abused me mentally. I grew up to be a pretty messed up person. I couldn't get a good job. I didn't even go to high school. I got some dead-end job and started working right after junior high. Life was pretty tough for me. When I turned 20, my mom told me to come over with my health insurance card. I realized that she was trying to borrow money under my name. So I refused. I give half of my salary to you every month. How are you broke? You might be my mom, but I'm not going in debt for you. She flipped out. You won't even help out your own mother? Get out then! I don't want to see your face ever again! Then she kicked me out of the house. I went to stay with my friends for a while. I started looking for jobs with a dormitory. After a while, I found a good job and ended up moving to the East Coast. After a few months, I took up my friend, who let me stay at her house after I got kicked out, to dinner at a nice restaurant to thank her. Good luck, she said to me. I started working really hard after that. I wasn't good with people, but I worked really hard. And the people at work were really nice to me too. Things were looking good for me. Then, one of my colleagues asked me if I was interested in playing video games. It was one of those online games. I didn't know much about video games, but I tried it anyway. It was actually pretty fun. I did all kinds of missions and leveled up my character. Turns out, I was pretty good at video games. People started depending on me. People even started thanking me for it. I felt important and needed for the first time in my life. I cried from joy in front of my computer. Then one day, we all went out to dinner together. I was still bad at socializing, so I didn't know if I should go, but one of my friends said, "Allie, you're coming too, right? Please come." I was so happy to hear that. There were all kinds of people there. I wasn't good at socializing, but since we all had a lot in common to begin with, the get-together was a lot of fun. I started feeling more comfortable around people after that. I was finally finding my place in the world. Then, one of them asked me out. He told me.
It was love at first sight.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to say to him. Then he said,
No need to rush anything.
So I decided to think about it. But as I got to know him better, I started liking him too. We started dating shortly after. I told him everything before we started dating. I told him I was bad with people and that I had crappy parents. I was kind of scared that he might leave me after, but he accepted me for who I was. After I told him everything, he said,
Well then, it's about time you start living your life.
His words meant so much to me. I started crying from joy. After going out with him, I felt like a completely different person. I learned all kinds of new things about myself. I just felt so comfortable around him. 2 years later, he proposed to me. We went to see his parents. His parents were so kind. They were nothing like my parents. I decided to tell them everything about myself. By the time I finished talking, my heart was pounding. I was so nervous. What if they say no about the marriage? I was so scared. But I soon realized I had nothing to worry about. They welcomed me in with open arms. We've always wanted a daughter. We'd be so happy to welcome you into our family, his mom said to me. I was so happy to hear that. Then I started crying from joy. So I was getting married, but I started wondering, should I tell my parents about this? Then my grandma called. She said my mom was in the hospital. I told my husband what happened.
You should go see her right away.
He said. So I went back home and went to see her at the hospital. My mom was unconscious. She was laying in bed in silence. She never did anything for me. She even kicked me out of the house. But seeing her like this, I felt all kinds of emotions running through my mind. Then Grandma said to me, "Thank you for coming, dear." I told her that I was getting married. "Oh, congratulations, dear. I'm so happy for you. You don't have to worry about your mother. Go out there and live your life. I'll watch her. You go be with your husband." So I did. I left the hospital. The next day, my mom passed away. Later, I heard from my uncle that my mom was really depressed. She was especially upset about the way she treated me. She was a crappy mom, and she kicked me out of the house. But I didn't hold any grudge against her. I started to think, maybe if I had reached out to her, things wouldn't have ended like this. After the funeral, I flew back home. I was so relieved to see him again. I told him about what happened. I told him that I was starting to have regrets about how I treated my mom. About a year later, we finally got married. His parents were so good to me. They treated me like I was their real daughter. I felt like they were my real parents, too. Then, a year later, I was pregnant. I was really happy, but at the same time, I was worried. I was neglected as a child. Will I be able to look after my child? I shared my concern with my husband and his parents. Then his mom said to me, "No one is perfect, dear. Everyone feels that way when they're having kids for the first time." But I was still worried about it, so my husband introduced me to his cousin. She already had 2 kids, and she was really kind. They were all so supportive. My stomach was getting bigger and bigger. Then, 9 months later, I finally gave birth. When I heard the baby crying, I thought she kind of sounded like my husband. Then, when I tried to feed my daughter, she grabbed my fingers with her hands. I started crying from joy. I'm never gonna do what my parents did to me. I'm gonna be the best mom in the world. A few days later, my husband's parents came over to visit me.
Thank you so much. Thanks to you, we now have a beautiful grandson.
Thank you for everything, too. You guys took me in with open arms. I can never thank you enough for everything you've done for me, I replied. Today, my daughter is 6 years old. She's so kind and caring. I'm really proud of her. I didn't have the best parents in the world, but I had great friends, a loving husband, and a beautiful daughter. And let's not forget my in-laws. They've been so good to me. Growing up, I was really bad at socializing, but not anymore. People around me have been so good to me. Raising a child isn't easy. I'm sure there'll be tough times too, like when she becomes a teenager. But even then, I don't think I'll ever stop loving her. When my son was 2 years old, he got an illness that causes water to collect in his testicles. He had to get surgery. He had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. When he got out, we got on a train to head home. It was the end of March. The train was always crowded during this time. I knew the date ahead of time, so I bought 2 reserved seats beforehand. He was still 2 years old, so he could still ride for free if he sat on my lap. Note, preschoolers get to ride the train for free if they sit on their parents' lap. But he just had surgery, and I didn't think it was a good idea for him to sit on my lap, so I got him a seat as well. I carried my son and got onto the train. The reserved seats were almost full. Actually, there were more passengers than there were seats. The non-reserved cart was packed with people standing in the aisle. I let him sit next to the window so he didn't get bored. The train started moving, and both of us started looking out the window. Then, about 30 minutes later, some lady walked in with her daughter, who was probably in elementary school. Then, look! This one is open! Come on! She started walking towards me. Looks like her daughter had an injured foot. Excuse me, could you scoot over? These are our seats, I replied. What? How old is he? You're supposed to make him sit on your lap! You didn't know that? She started yelling at me. But I paid for his seat too, so... I said weakly. You know your son can ride for free if he sits on your lap, right? Yeah? And you still paid for his seat? Yes. See, he just got out of the hospital, so I wanted to give him some room. But she didn't believe me. What a dumbass! Who does that? What a waste of money! She just laughed at me. I was never good at arguing with people. The lady just kept yelling at me. All I could do was just sit there in silence. But she just kept going on and on. I'll let you off the hook this time, but don't do this again when you use public transportation with your kid. Especially not during the busy season. Be more considerate. You know he can ride for free if he sits on your lap, right? But if you want to get a seat for him, you gotta pay. You're so ignorant. What? I knew that. Was she even listening to me? But I didn't say anything. If he's not feeling well, let him sit on your lap. My daughter's foot is injured too, you know. Then she rolled up her daughter's pants and showed me her ankles. It was wrapped in bandages. See this? She can barely stand up! And the non-reserved seat is full. Don't you feel bad for her? Then she took my bag and put it up in the cabinet. Then she pushed me towards the window and took over my seat. Stop! You're embarrassing me. But she just picked up her daughter and made her sit on her lap. It's okay, dear. Now you can sit. She's so kind. Say thank you. She looked pretty happy. I ended up sitting in the same seat with my son. But after a little while, he started complaining. He wasn't feeling well. I stood up to go and buy some snacks for him. But the lady and her daughter were blocking my way. Excuse me, could you let me through? Huh? What now? Stop bothering us. She seemed really annoyed. She picked up her daughter and moved out of the seat to let me through. We moved to the snack cart. I got him some juice and snacks. After a little while, he was feeling better. But if I go back to my seat, he'll have to sit on my lap again. I didn't want him to start crying again, so I decided to stay out here for a while. Then, I headed back to my seat to get something from my bag. Around the same time, the train conductor was going around checking everyone's tickets. That lady was arguing with the conductor. What's going on? I asked. There you are. He's saying we shouldn't be sitting here. Tell him what happened. Huh?
I asked her for her ticket, but she only had a ticket for the non-reserved seat, so I was asking her to move. But she said that the passenger who was sitting next to her gave her the seat, so...
So what's the problem? She gave me her seat. End of story. Hey, tell him! I didn't know what to say. Then the conductor asked me.
Did you give her your seat?
Well, she said her daughter was injured, so he understood what I was getting at.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to move. This is a reserved seat. She has tickets to both of these seats. You gotta move.
But he's a baby. She should let him sit in her lap.
Like I said, she paid for 2 seats, plus...
Then he looked at me for a second, so I nodded.
Her son just had surgery. That's why he can't sit on her lap.
The lady didn't know what to say. Before she showed up, I told the conductor about my son. Why didn't you say anything? If I knew that. Seriously? She didn't even try to listen.
Alright, come on now, move it. Don't try this again.
The lady got kicked out of her seat. But my daughter! Right as she said that, her daughter started crying. The conductor panicked.
Oh, it's okay, dear. Sorry I raised my voice like that.
He apologized to the girl, but she shook her head and said, "No! I'm the one that should be apologizing!" Huh? We were so confused. My ankle is fine! Huh? Hey, what are you? You sprained your ankle, remember? She was panicking. Her daughter told us everything. Looks like the lady wanted to sit down, so she wrapped her daughter's ankle in bandages and told her to act injured. We didn't even know what to say to her anymore. The other passengers all started staring at her. "I'm sorry. I made it all up. I won't do it again." She finally gave up and apologized. She grabbed her daughter's hands and went back to the non-reserved car. Finally, peace at last. After that, my son and I enjoyed the train ride together in our seats. He was feeling much better too. Thank goodness everything worked out.
Just the other day, I ran into some trouble. I was at the arcade, and then some guy tried to steal my bag. His name was Bob. He didn't look like someone who went to the arcade. At first, I didn't notice. But when he grabbed my bag and started running, I chased right after him. Then I drop-kicked him. I got him pretty good. I actually knocked him out cold. I was kind of worried. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't say anything. He was out. I was starting to get worried. I called the staff over and explained to him what happened. The store manager called 911 for me. I hope they believe me when I tell them it was self-defense. Fortunately, other gamers there saw what happened and they all talked to the police for me. And so, I didn't get in any trouble. The cop was yelling at the store manager though. "I told you to get more cameras in here!" He was right. The place was pretty big, but they barely had any cameras. But he's a victim too. I kind of felt bad. Bob got taken to the hospital. The police officer asked me if I wanted to press charges. I got my bag back, and I didn't want anything to do with him, so I said no. A few days later, I got an unexpected guest at my house. It was Bob and an old man, probably in his 70s. What the? How did they find me? I decided not to open the door. But I had plans that day, so I had to step out of the house at some point. I decided to talk to them over the speaker. "What do you want?"
"Hello, sir. I'm Bob's father. We came here to apologize."
He sounded like a normal person, but Bob looked angry for some reason. I guess he didn't want to be here. I don't think he was here to apologize. How did you find me?
The cops told us.
Huh? Stop lying. They don't just give out personal info like that.
I'm telling you the truth. His name was Johnson. Officer Johnson. If you don't believe me, you can ask him.
Cops are stupid. I told them I don't want to get involved in this. Could you just leave me alone? I don't want anything to do with your son anymore. Leave! I yelled at them over the speaker. That's when I decided to move. I was single and my company paid for my apartment as long as I was near the city. But then, the old guy got down on the ground and started begging for my forgiveness.
"Please, sir. Bob. He's a manager at my company. He just signed a major deal with a famous car manufacturer and, well, his career is just getting started. But then he saw your bag and he got tempted. It was just lying there out in the open. Hey, I was young once too. I don't blame you for being careless. I was the same way too. It's nothing to be embarrassed about.
What?
Of course, this is my son's fault, but he's also the victim in a way. You can see that, don't you? So, if it's okay with you, can we pretend like this never happened?
Wow, I thought he came here to apologize. But he's basically saying it's my fault that his son got tempted to steal. He's the victim? Seriously? I had it up to here with him. I played a gun sound on my computer and told them the next one is gonna be at the door. I told them to get off my property. I went to the police station to file a complaint. Some middle-aged cop accidentally gave them my address. The other officers started yelling at him too. Sometimes people come and ask for the victim's address, saying they want to apologize. But most of the time, they're lying, so under any circumstances, the cops can't give out personal information like that. But Bob's parents insisted. They kept begging him, and he finally broke. This time, they actually came to apologize. But what if they were out for revenge? Thank God nothing happened. The police then called Bob. They told him to never contact me again in person. But a few days later, his entire family showed up at my doorstep. His dad, mom, and even his wife. I couldn't believe this guy was married. She was actually pretty cute. Then she said to me,
We have a daughter. She's 16. We'll give you our daughter, so please, drop the charges.
now I see what this is all about. They want me to drop the charges. But Bob never said a word, let alone apologize. He just stood there looking angry. A 16-year-old daughter of a manager at a big firm? It was tempting, but I realized something. I didn't press charges. So they must have me confused with someone else. I wonder how many people he tried to steal from. The thing is, I never pressed charges. I think you got me confused with someone else.
No, that can't be. You're the only person my husband tried to steal from. Right, honey?
Okay, but seriously, I didn't press charges.
How can that be? Why are you lying to us? What do you have against my husband? It was a simple mistake.
I didn't know what to say to her anymore. The next day, I took the day off from work. I found a new apartment, called the movers, and decided to move out as fast as possible. Even after that, they kept coming to my house day after day. My neighbors started spreading false rumors about me. They thought some loan sharks were after me or something. They called the apartment manager to complain, but I had already explained things to him, so they knew what was going on. So the neighbors found out what was going on and the rumors went away. But Bob and his family kept coming to my house every day, even on my last day there, but their 16-year-old daughter never showed up. 2 weeks after the incident, I finally moved out. Finally, life was back to normal. I later heard from the police that Bob was in a whole bunch of trouble. Theft, pickpocketing, you name it. I heard he's going to be sent to prison soon. I guess I wasn't the only victim after all. Turns out, he had some kind of mental illness too. Maybe that's why he had that look on his face the whole time. He got demoted and lost his major account at work. His wife left him too and took his daughter with her. Anyways, I'm just glad it's all over. It was so annoying having them come over every day. Plus, I found out that their 16-year-old daughter was super ugly. She looked exactly like Bob. Glad I didn't fall for that one.
I'm Allie. When I was 28, I got married to my husband Alex. He was 2 years younger than me. After we got married, he insisted that we live with his family. He had a sister who was still in high school. His parents asked me to do things around the house, so I cooked and cleaned for them before and after work. But doing housework for 5 people wasn't easy. I was pretty exhausted. We both worked, but we each managed our own money. But since we were living in their home, we paid his parents a fixed amount for rent every month. But I had to pay for food for some reason. I was already paying rent, and paying for all their foods didn't feel fair. But I didn't want to cause trouble, so I just went with it. His sister Blair was really mean too. But my husband loved her. Even when I talked to him about it, he didn't listen. And every time I tried to talk to him about it, he got in a bad mood. So soon, I had no one else I could talk to about it. I started thinking about moving out, but then my husband asked me to make lunch for everyone except for his parents who liked to eat out. And since his sister ate with friends, he told me to make something nice for her every day so she wouldn't be embarrassed. So I worked during the day and came home and did everything around the house, which usually took until midnight. Then I had to get up at 5 in the morning to make lunch and breakfast for the family. And my husband never defended me. I'm his wife, not a maid. Then one day, his sister asked me to make her 2 lunches every day. It was for her boyfriend. Needless to say, I had to pay for it all. I didn't even know her boyfriend, but I had to get up early in the morning and cook for him. I was so irritated. Then she told me to step up my cooking game. Come to think of it, her parents said the same thing to me. So instead of 5, I started getting up at 4 to cook for them. I tried all kinds of recipes. I even learned new recipes from around the world. I did this so she wouldn't be able to explain herself. Stuff like paella, tortilla, ajillo. She started asking me what I made every morning, but I didn't explain much. I was always good at cooking. I didn't enjoy cooking for them, but it was still kind of fun. Then her boyfriend started doubting her. There was no way that a high school student could make this kind of food every day. That's exactly what I wanted. And since she couldn't memorize the names of the dishes, she couldn't even look it up online. By the way, my cousin and his son lived in a neighborhood. His name was Alex. He was in the same class as Blair. I asked him to feed me intel about her. In return, I cooked lunch for his mom who was in the hospital. My husband and his sister never thanked me once, but...
The food was amazing! Are you sure I don't have to pay for this?
Thank you. It's no problem, really. But then the kids at school noticed something. They realized that Alex, Blair, and Blair's boyfriend were all eating the same thing for lunch. I wasn't expecting that. Her friends thought she was cheating on her boyfriend or something. Sorry you got mixed up in all of this, Alex. But to prove that it was not true, Alex explained everything to everyone. Soon, everyone learned that Katie couldn't cook and she was being mean to her sister-in-law.
You're terrible. And you're a liar!
Her boyfriend left her. Everything went according to plan. But everyone started yelling at me at home, including my husband.
You framed my little sister!
He even asked me to divorce him. I was pretty sick and tired of his family, so I agreed. I just want him out of my life, so I signed the papers on the spot. But they made me do the housework until I moved out. So, on my last day, I got up at 3 and decided to cook for them. I left a note in their lunch boxes. In my husband's lunchbox, I wrote, "I love you, Blair." And in Blair's lunchbox, I wrote, "I love you, Alex." I even wrote, "I love you" with ketchup. Now, it was time to move out. I asked Blair to give me my stuff back. She borrowed clothes and jewelry from me, but she said no. So I went into her room with a garbage bag and put her stuff in it and threw it into the garbage truck.
You bitch! No wonder Alex is leaving you.
I'm glad I'm getting a divorce. I hated living with you guys, and you're a thief, I yelled out loud. All the neighbors were there, so word spread pretty quickly. Then I got my stuff and left the house. I went around the neighborhood and told everyone about everything. They all felt really bad for me. All the neighbors knew me because I was the one doing everything around the house. I think some of them knew what was going on. They were all on my side. After saying bye to my neighbors, I left. At work, everyone saw my husband's lunch. I heard things got pretty awkward. All sorts of rumors started spreading around the company. Things got really awkward for him. The same thing happened with his sister. She lost all her friends and everyone started talking behind her back. She stopped going to school and became a shut-in. As for the parents, the neighbors started ridiculing them for the way they treated me. They tried making excuses, but it was no use. As for me, I started cooking more. I started posting my meals on social media. Lots of people followed me, so I started organizing cooking schools on the weekends. This was a big hit. Things moved pretty quickly from there. Everyone loved my cooking school, and soon I quit my real job and started teaching full-time. Business is good. I even got sponsors now. And just the other day, a publisher called me. They want to publish a recipe book. I was making a lot of money now. And when my ex-husband heard about this, he tried to get me back. He sent me a bunch of texts trying to bring me back. When I called him, he sounded excited. He probably thought I'd take him back. Listen, you're all dead to me now. Don't ever contact me again. Bye. That felt nice. The other day, I ran into my old neighbor. She told me that Blair was still a shut-in and my ex-husband lost his job. She said that their house is a mess. Oh well, who cares?
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.